Hey, before we get started, everybody needs help. Everybody. And Dr. Diane Call is there to help you. She runs creative therapy services, and she combines creative and practical strategies for various mental health and wellness issues. For more information, contact Diane and ask her about whether she can help you or not. You can check out her website, creativetherapyservices.net.
Bring the museum back to life.
You know, people sit out on the front porch hoping people will come by.
Go forth and do good.
It's insane. I have the most understanding wife in the world.
I treat everybody the same thing.
Oh, that's the other thing I love about Marietta. It's like a melting pot.
You are listening to Marietta Stories. Each week, veteran podcaster Bill Nowicki brings you the heartwarming, interesting, and fun stories from the people that make the community of Marietta, Georgia, a place to call home. Here's your host, Bill Nowicki.
All right, I have Tim Nielson. It's on a Friday. School is closed, Marietta High School, but he's over the Media Center here. And I heard from friends that he's doing some really cool things, so I want to have him give me a tour of the place. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. You showed me the intro video, and there's a lot of stuff going on here. They have like a little stage show, coffee shop atmosphere. They have thousands of books, and I mean, Media Center is a lot different than the old library.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have all the traditional library stuff. Of course, we have tons and tons of books. We have, I think, almost 30,000. We have magazines. We have an archive of old magazines, just like any old library would. No microfilm, no microfiche. We, like libraries have, you know, since about the later 80s, earlier 90s, we have plenty of computers for students to work on. It's been important for us to make sure all our space is modular so that we can move everything around. And that's something that we often do in school libraries. And I could go on about the Learning Commons thing and how we're trying to make that shift, but that might be a whole nother interview altogether.
Yeah, I could come back.
Yeah. But yeah, I think what we try to do in school libraries, we try to accommodate everything. In a lot of school libraries, it's where the staff meetings are. Classes go there for instruction. There's individual group. There's after-school tutoring. There's meetings after school. And so you have to make the space adaptable and modular so that you can meet everyone's needs. And it's so far-ranging. That's what we do.
Well, just looking at your video, you can tell that you've adapted the library to meet the needs of the current students. You don't try to make it force-fit into the old school way.
Yeah, well, and we try to make sure that everybody has everything they need, and we also try to do some fun stuff. You already mentioned Cafe Libre, so that's an event that we do about once a month where we transform the library into a coffee shop, and it's an open mic stage. We do have a stage right here in the front section of the Media Center, and it's an open mic. Students get up there with their acoustic guitar or their ukulele. We bring a keyboard out so they have access to that. Students have come up with their own little sequencers and done live electronic music production. Really? They'll bring a book of poetry. Students have done stand-up comedy. One teacher came and read a short story that he wrote. So it's
maybe I could do some of my stories and put those out.
Yeah, come on up. We'd love to see you. So, and we range from about a couple dozen to as many as I think 64 students was the most I had in here at once. And so yeah, and we transform the circulation desk into a coffee bar and sell coffee and treats, and everything's only like 50 cents. So it's really just nominal.
That's, you know, when I think back to my library experience, we had it was so much different because the librarian was kind of mean, you know, and she was like going through books and looking for swear words and blacking them out, and it was this whole crazy dynamic. But here you're really trying to work with students. You have digital media, you have all kinds of, you can access things more than just traditional.
Right, yeah, and that's very classic, and that stereotype exists for a reason. My school library was the same way. I never went in. I could have told you who the librarian was, and she wasn't very nice. So we're trying to do things different. We're definitely trying to do things differently. As a whole, I think school librarians, we've identified that. We understand that is that model, and we're doing our best to kind of make those shifts. So
yeah, and the person that gave me your name said he's doing some incredibly creative things. So I want to hear some more of this stuff, but let's do a quick tour of your library.
Definitely. So here in the front section, of course, there's circulation. We have 14 workstations for students to come in and print stuff out. Not everybody has a printer at home. Teachers still want things on paper. So we're trying to go paperless with some of our classroom, our digital classrooms. We're not entirely there yet, so we are still turning things in by paper. Here's the Cafe Libre stage, and if you look in the ceiling, we do have stage lights with red and blue and green and yellow gels, but they're just little $6 clamp lamps from the store. But being on the stage, you really feel like you're on a stage, and I joke that, I've been paid to play on crummier stages than this. So the students, it really feels. I showed a friend of mine, and he does lots. I mean, he's a professional musician. I showed him just a picture of the stage one night I took, and he said, "Where is this? I want to play there." So I think we're on to something. I think it feels legitimate for our students. So, but again, I mentioned our print collection. We have tons of electronic databases, and we do have ebooks that students can check out and read on their phones. Mm-hmm. So, but again, all that is two-dimensional media. When they use our computers to make PowerPoints or to lay out posters, again, that's two-dimensional media. Even 50 years ago, when chemical darkrooms were in libraries to serve the yearbook class, all that was just two-dimensional media. Mm-hmm. You can hear me jangling my keys.
Yeah, that's good. That's activity.
So, but there's never been a space for making three-dimensional media in libraries. But as long as I've been a librarian, I've really wanted to put in a shop. And as makerspace.
What? This is incredible.
Yeah, so welcome to the makerspace. When 3D printing kind of came out, 3D printers and 3D printing was developed by the maker community, by local maker spaces. And so as school libraries and as public libraries started hearing about 3D printing and understanding maybe they should have a 3D printer, they started understanding what maker spaces were and what the maker community was. And so,
what is that?
Yeah, so the maker spaces and maker communities.
Let me know if you need a swig of coffee at any time.
Yeah. So makerspace, it's in a community, especially in big cities, people don't have the space at home or even the money to buy a ton of tools. So everybody will come together in the community and they'll form a makers group and they'll find a good space for rent and they will rent this, warehousey type space and they'll all pool their money and they'll buy a bandsaw and a drill press and a sewing machine and a 3D printer and a computer controlled router, a plasma cutter, soldering irons, multimeters, everything that it takes to make whatever you can envision. And that's what I wanted to do in here. Sure, adults can do that. They can be a part of that. They can get in their car and drive to it. But so many students, they have their ideas for projects that they just can't create because they don't have those resources at home. Even when I was in high school, the things that I wanted to do, I wanted to build my own electric guitar. And I couldn't do that because I didn't have all those tools that I needed at home. I was in high school in Athens, and so I would find shops on campus at the University of Georgia to kind of sneak into. And so I would use their tools. But if I'd had this in my high school, I could have been that much more productive.
Yeah, and you probably know of the quick, rapid prototyping and just given people access to find that creative niche, try something out, try something new.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, again, what we try to do is we try to offer all the tools that they need to create whatever they can envision. So when you first walk in, you're kind of immediately distracted by the big machines. There's a drill press and a bandsaw, these traditional woodworking machines. As you go into the cabinet here, this is where we keep our sewing machines and our computer-controlled embroiderer, our tools for leather craft and electronics. Here are our screens for screen printing. Students have made a lot of T-shirts and printed other stuff. Of course, here is our 3D printer. This was a great 3D printer for us. It was only $800. Gratefully, we kind of came in to develop the space right as those new batch of printers were developed and released, and that we didn't have to spend $3,000 on a printer. We only had to spend $800. And we took the same approach even with our big machines. It's not a $1,000 drill press. It's a $100 drill press because that's really all you need to get started. Mm-hmm. And we really have yet to hit that ceiling where a student comes in and says, I want to build this, and we don't have that tool. Gratefully, everything a students wanted to do, we've been able to help them create.
So it sounds like you had that urge when you were this age to be able to create things, but you didn't have access to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And we've been able to offer that opportunity to students. They've made their own skateboards. They've made their own handbags. They've made their own costumes for the animation convention to do cosplay. Students have rebuilt their own computers in here because we had more tools than they have at home. We had a teacher that built a makeshift air conditioner that used a cooler and dry ice for his porch because we had the tools and I was kind of able to help him think through the process. Yes, we do have a wood shop and a library now, and so what is that justification? Mm-hmm. And in terms the create,
somebody's going to ask that question. You're spending all this money in our schools. doing this non-traditional stuff. They got to worry about reading, writing, arithmetic, and getting into college and blah, 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 blah.
Well, I'm going to address that first, the reading, that first R, reading, because just because you have the tools doesn't mean you know how to do it. Right. And I tell students, when I got this 3D printer, I'd never used a 3D printer before, but how did I learn how to do it? And it was by reading, of course. So when a student comes in to me and they say, I want to do this project I've never done before, and I say, I've never done it before either, here's a book. So just outside our makerspace, this is where we keep our maker print collection, and we have a ton of books about making certain stuff in particular, and then just about general maker skills. Books about fabric craft, books about woodworking, books about metal craft, jewelry making. Those books are available, and I put those books in their hands when they say, Mr. Nielson, I want to make a leather purse. Here, read this book. And they take that book. And believe it or not, students do still like print materials. Yes, you can learn tons of stuff from watching videos on YouTube. Books are a good way to kind of acquire that vocabulary that you need. And people say, what do you need to memorize things for? It's old knowledge.
Sounds like my negative person.
Yeah, that's just knowledge. That anybody can do that. But I think that, especially in craftsmanship, there is a necessity to the vocabulary. I mean, envision being on the work site. Hey, man, hand me the hammer. What's a hammer? It's important to know that it is, and that's a very trite example, but I'm sure kind of expand that. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah,
and you're like tapping into the intrinsically motivating things for people to kind of drive them toward what they need to know by using books. And I'm sure there's arithmetic and everything else involved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had some students come in and they had to do a project for math class, and they had to cut out a circle, and they needed to know how big of a sheet of wood they needed. So I was reminding them, area and circumference and those formulas. We have the whiteboard there behind us, and we worked all that math out together. So there's definitely those academic learning experiences, and then just those extracurricular learning experiences, co-curricular learning experiences for students, because it is, student directed. Students will come in here and make things just because they want to. They're not getting class credit to make their own skateboard. They do that because they want to do it. Now we have plenty of opportunities for getting grades on this stuff. There is the International Baccalaureate Personal Project. And at our school, that was a big justification for the program. You've heard about how Marietta High School is an IB school. Every sophomore year, the students have to create a personal project. And it can be a service project where they create a reading program at the senior center, or a litter pickup program, or a pet adoption program. It can be, a personal growth program where they teach themselves to play the piano or kickboxing. But then also, and probably the majority of our students make something. And students have made their own electric guitar. Students have, made their own dress. Students have kind of done double projects where they start their own jewelry business, but making the jewelry is one part, and then the business is like the other part. So it's kind of this cool two-part project. But for so many of those students, there have been projects they've wanted to do, but there's no way they could afford the equipment to do it. So by having the makerspace here, it offers them that opportunity to create that stuff.
What about forming teams? Do you see that happen too?
Yeah, well, in terms of teams, like there's kind of one group of dudes that hangs out in the maker. Mr. Nielson, can you open the makerspace for us? First thing in the morning, this is kind of where they hang out. And they'll, maybe two of them will be hanging out while one of them's working on a project, and they'll kind of alternate as one of them has something else come up.
Maybe they're going to create the new Facebook or something.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what might come out of it. So in terms of, hey, let's start a business, there have been some students who've done that. Those students focus on more of the business, and they kind of get other people to make the T-shirts. I was like, come on, make the T-shirts yourself. Let's do this kind of all the way DIY.
Because people don't realize, but if you want to have a T-shirt business and you don't know what goes into it, it's kind of hard to challenge somebody when they're trying to say, well, this is going to cost me so much more. Well, no, not really, because if you do it in this way, maybe you can save some time and effort and all that stuff. So knowing how to do something is very important. Now, how did this get started? You said through IB?
Well, yeah, so it was
funding and all that.
Well, we initially used our library budget. Our principal at the time, Ms. Colburn, thank you, Ms. Colburn, did give us an extra chunk of money to buy all the tools in here. Believe it or not, all this stuff was about $6,000-$7,000 maybe. So really, when you look around the room, I didn't buy any furniture, so we saved a lot of money there. We just kind of used furniture that was in the school already. But yeah, we used some Media Center money. We've used Media Center money over the years to buy any additional tools and certainly supplies. But yeah, that first chunk was really, 98% of what we have in here. And then also I did receive an innovation grant. I applied for that through the school district and received some money from that. But believe it or not, the majority of that money I spent on books. So there's a little bit of irony there in receiving an innovation grant and spending it on books. But it was very, very valuable. And we do see those books circulate. So
I see you have like all kinds of bins under there, leather craft, which right down the road from here is Goforth Goods, and he'd be a great person to have in here because he just started just tooling around until we figured it out.
Nathan's a good dude. I've met him. He's definitely a friend of a friend, and I do want to get him to come in and do a workshop. He's very busy. I know he's got a lot going on with family too, but he's a great dude, and he's got a great shop, and I'm really stoked to see him doing as well as he is. Yeah,
but you have all these different bins, so it's not just leather. It's plotter, jewelry, gloves, masks, I guess, to protect themselves.
I think it's, because it's in a library, we have to be hyper organized. That's just kind of the librarian's way. True, yeah. So, but yeah, again, we just wanted to make sure that we had everything that a student would need to create whatever they can envision. I don't have a welder and I don't have a table saw. Those are because you can kill yourself pretty easily with those. You can lose a finger in here, but I did want to get it. It would be pretty hard to kill yourself with what I have in here. So
got it. All right. So this is great. And you got a little studio light.
Yeah, it just kind of lightens things up. I had the fire department come in and they told me I had to get rid of my halogen light. So these LED lights are beautiful.
They're great, and they don't put out a lot of heat either.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's nice to stand on stage now and not, be dripping with sweat.
Right. But you got a what you call it out of here?
Yeah, so this I just kind of.
What's that saw called?
This is a miter saw. It's a power miter saw. It's a compound miter saw. But yeah, this is my personal saw that I brought in years ago because I built the work tables that were in here myself, and it was before I had bought our miter saw, so I had to bring mine in, and I'm just now bringing it out to use the new one. All
right, so let's talk a little bit about your life. So tell me, we were talking before this interview, but tell me a little bit about how you ended up here in Marietta.
Yeah, so it was an interesting story. As a kid, my dad was in the Army, so I moved around a lot. So I've kind of been used to that my whole life. But I finally finished high school in Athens, went to the University of Georgia. I taught technology for a handful of years in Augusta before I moved back to Athens for graduate school, and that was when I picked up my librarian certificate. Taught in Athens technology again for a couple more years, and then I told my then fiance, my wife Kim, now. Wherever I get a job as librarian, that's where we're going to go. And happened to find something in Washington, D.C., in Alexandria, Virginia. So I was an elementary school librarian there for a couple years, and then went down to Chapel Hill, and I was a high school librarian there at a brand new school. And that was a really good opportunity because it was a brand new building, and they hired us all about 8 months before the school opened. So I had 8 months and about $200,000 to buy all the books, to buy all the bookends, to buy the laminator, to buy everything it took to make a library. So I had this great opportunity, to build a high school library, and I knew the whole space. I knew every book in the collection, and it really helped me break down what a library really is. And so anytime I walk into a library now, I know exactly. I won't know the content of it, but I'll know all those teeny tiny pieces that make it up.
You lost me there, so tell me what you mean.
As far as...
Yeah, so you you had like a blank slate to be able to create the library.
Blank slate. Yeah.
So how do you design it from the ground up?
Yeah. Well, when I first walked in, they had already worked with an interior designer. They had picked out the bookshelves. They had picked out the furniture, but a lot of times when they work with interior designers, they're not working with library consultants. So I did have some opportunity to move some of the furniture around to get, the flow of the shelving so that, when you go from the 800s, it does go to the 900s and not back to the 200s or something. So I did have the opportunity to kind of work with that layout, make sure all the fiction was in one continuous line. And that's one thing that I'm working with here is we're waiting to get a chunk of money so we can rearrange our shelving so our fiction doesn't end 100 yards away from where it started. So again, it's just flow, ergonomics of a space. And I was in an office downtown Chapel Hill. They rented office space for us, and there just me and my computer and the library catalog and picking out all those little different things that I needed for that library. And I would get to tour the construction space. There's construction workers walking, just an empty construction zone of a library. So I got to see that all happen. And that was actually my second time. My first technology lab was at a brand new school too. They were a little further along, but again, I had a huge chunk of money and I got to spend that as I wanted. And what's nice is that had I come into that library later, all those spaces wouldn't have been in, and I was able to shape the library for what would work for me. But then not only, it's also important to me that I shape these spaces so that when I leave, someone else can come in and continue working, because I don't want to build something that only works for me, and then it's been a waste of money for the next person.
I didn't hear how you ended up here in Marietta.
Oh, yeah. So we were living in Chapel Hill, and my son was born. He was about 2, and I said, all right, we need to get closer to family. My mom and dad are in Athens. My wife's family's in Florida. So he said, all right, let's go to Atlanta. And I decided, when I go to Atlanta, I'm going to Atlanta. I'm not going to Roswell or Alpharetta. I'm going to Atlanta. So I decided I'm going to Atlanta. Somehow I got a job at the one school where I wanted to be. I spent 1 year as a media and technology specialist at Edmond Middle School. We were renting a house in Smyrna. It was just very difficult to find something right there in the city for what we needed. So as I spent that time at that 1 year in Atlanta public schools and spent time in and around that area, I just decided it wasn't really for us. It wasn't really what I wanted. Atlanta's a lot. It's not New York City, but it's just too much, too spread out. And there's great things about Atlanta, don't get me wrong. But for us at this time, it just wasn't the right thing. So at the same time, we kind of started exploring all these other areas, and we found Marietta, and we found the Square, and we found Marietta High School. And by God's good grace, there was an opening for a school librarian. So I met Janice when I was looking at a house for sale. She lived next door, and Janice insisted that I apply for the job. And she said, I know the principal. I'm going to send her an email. So she sends an email to Ms. Colburn and says, I got to apply for the job now. So I applied for the job. But somehow, again, God waved his hand. And here I am. So, and then we rent that house in Smyrna, found a house for sale within a mile of the school, and a mile between the school and the Square. And so here we are, and my daughter was born, and everything's really good now. So everything's good in Marietta.
You sound a little surprised.
Yeah.
Well, you're no longer a nomad.
Well, it's hard because, a nomad, like having spent my whole life like that, it's you get to this point and you're like, do I move now? Like, but everything's so good now. It's like, what's next? And so, but because things are so good, it's like, I don't want to move. I just stay right here. Just keep doing things the way they're going. I did have another opportunity at another school, a great school, but it was really Marietta, the city, that sold us, because it is kind of this city in itself. It seems as though you could pick up Marietta from the Atlanta metro, put it in the middle of nowhere, and it would still be Marietta. It can exist on its own. We're within a mile of the grocery store, the church, the hospital, the Waffle House, whatever. Like, it's all right here in Marietta. And then of course the Square, which, if you ask me, is the only proper downtown in the Atlanta metro area. I having lived in so many college towns, Athens, Chapel Hill, spending so much time in other college towns. My wife's from Tallahassee. I spent a lot of time in State College, Pennsylvania. Marietta is the only town in Atlanta that I think has what it has. What about Roswell? Roswell's okay, but it's not the Square. The Square really has that same feel that Chapel Hill, Athens, these college towns do have.
Cool. And it sounds like you really enjoy the whole why be a teacher? Why not work for a big company? I mean, you can get all kinds of creative outlets with bigger companies instead of doing this.
And that's a great question. I do ask myself that. I will say that, a teacher's lifestyle.
Don't get any ideas.
Yeah, I know. Well, thanks, Bill. Thanks, man. The teacher's lifestyle really has its merits. You get a lot of time off. There's time off throughout the summer. I get to spend a lot of time with my kids. I have friends, and they have real jobs. I'll say, quote, real jobs. And, they don't get home till 6, 7 o'clock, and they don't get to see and the kids are about to go to bed. And they're commuting 45 minutes on 285 or, an hour and a half. So there's all that, of course, but then there is working with young people, and that is not why I got into the game. I became a teacher because it's a relatively stable career. They pay you okay. Maybe I could double my salary working for Google, but as a teacher, again, it's a very stable career. You get paid okay. It's a very good lifestyle. It's performing. I do enjoy performing. I mean, that's another reason I got into teaching.
I had a problem. I was showing up to high-level meetings at nuclear plants. I'm talking site vice president, plant general manager, engineering director with a backpack on. I knew I needed something more professional. So I checked out my friend Nathan Martin at 795 Whitlock Avenue, a place called Goforth Goods, and he hooked me up with a leather briefcase. I'm talking the Cooper satchel. And it was super cool when I went back to the nuclear plants and showed up with that baby on. And you too can have that same feeling. Go to goforthgoods.com and check out the 70 products he has. I'm talking about duffel bags, tote bags, briefcases, messenger bags, backpacks, wallets, belts, and other travel accessories. And if it's something you don't like from there, you can make something custom just for you. I'm talking quality components, something you can pass on from generation to generation. And he guarantees it for life. Goforthgoods.com, enter the promo code Marietta Stories, and for a limited time, you can get an extra 25% off. Goforthgoods.com, promo code Marietta Stories for 25% off. But don't wait, it's going to be gone.
I got into teaching technology because it's the things that I enjoy doing. You know, at the time, as a skateboarder, as a musician, I was, building my own ramps, customizing my own guitars, drawing ramps, making my own T-shirts. It's being a skateboarder, especially a musician a little bit too, but especially being a skateboarder, there's so much DIY stuff, and we're all out there making our own T-shirts. I guarantee you that 90% of skateboarders over 30 know how to screen print, know Photoshop and graphic design and all this video editing. We're all making our own skate videos and editing them together. Being a musician, you know how to record audio. So it was all those things that I enjoy doing personally, and then I could teach them, spend all day teaching that. It sounds good to me. So that's why I became a teacher. And I remember being an undergraduate and hearing my classmates, we'd have to go around the room. Why are you in the College of Education? Why do you want to be a teacher? And they would say, because I want to make a difference in a young person's life. And I would roll my eyes. Oh, no, come on, get out of here. You're full of it. I didn't need that. I never developed any bonds with any of my teachers. They were the enemy. They're the teachers. They're
keeping you from what you love.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't want to have any. I couldn't tell you what car any of them drove. I didn't know if any of them were married. But as I started, even my first year teaching, I found that these students need someone. They don't have anyone in their lives, and they do look to you. They look to their teachers for that model that they're not getting at home. And I understood that, yes, I am genuinely making an impression on them, making a difference. Just this summer, I reconnected with, he was one of my students my very first year teaching. He lives in Durham now. He found me on Instagram, and the guy's in his 30s now, because I was very young when I first started teaching, right out of college. And I reconnected. He's like, you changed my life. He did this great post on Teacher Appreciation Week about me. And he was a student that I got to know. We had so much in common musically. I think we both listened to a lot of music that most people don't listen to. So anyway, so it was cool to make that connection for him as a student, for me as a young teacher, and then to kind of maintain that again. But I haven't seen him in the last 17 years, but we reconnected and it was great. We had coffee in North Carolina. And so I hope to get to see him again. And then being here, there was a student that I had at Cafe Libre, and I bumped into him at Zaxby's one night. He transferred to another school. I hadn't seen him in over 6 months. He was there, I think he was there with a parent. And I said, hey, good to see you. Great to see you, man. And so we said hello as we were getting drinks or whatever. And then they were leaving just before me. I went to take out my trash. And he said, see you next time, Mr. Nielson. I said, bye. And he left with his parent. But then as he went out the door, his parent leaned back in to the door and said to me, thank you so much. You flipped a switch. And it was, thank you so much would be one thing, or like, you really made a difference would be one thing, but you flipped a switch. That was heavy, man. That hit me pretty hard. Yeah, I'm kind of lost for words there, other than it was heavy.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're saying is, part of it is, you're right there, and a small change at this age can have a huge effect on the rest of somebody's life if you're there and you're creative with the things you've done in your life, making skateboards and stuff like that, but you really have to be really creative with people and trying to mold them.
Yeah, you do, because as I mentioned before, it's performing and it's stressful. And I do think that being a teacher is one of the hardest professional jobs you can have, because that moment of stress can last all day. You get your planning period, but when you're a classroom teacher, you're on stage all day, and like you can't show those vulnerabilities to your students. You have to be Maybe being a brain surgeon is more stressful. Air traffic controller, I'm sure there are more stressful jobs. But I do think that being a classroom teacher is one of the most stressful jobs you can have. And you do have to be creative, and you have to understand that every student is a different person. They say, school should be like business. If business can exist, then we should run schools like businesses. It's not like that. We are not a chair factory. When a chair factory gets a bad shipment of oak, they send it back. If the chair factory orders oak and they get particle board, they don't say, all right, we'll see what we can do. They're not going to make the same chairs. And that's what we're working with every day in schools is we do and not to compare our students to, lumps of
Yeah, you might want to change the analogy, but keep going, keep digging.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like
I know exactly what you mean. You have to deal with the world as it is. You can't change it, discard it, try something new. And to me, good teachers really connect in a way like that guy you flipped the switch. Yeah. You connected in a way that resonated with him.
Yeah, I think that's a special moment. I think that all teachers do have those moments with some students, and I hope that every student finds the right person in school, and a lot of students won't. We do the best that we can. We really do. And I think at Marietta High School, there's all very good teachers. We don't have any bad teachers. There are bad teachers in the world. I will say at our school, I think we all have very good teachers. So we are here to make chairs. We're here to educate the students. That is our job. But to do that, we do have to try to understand, even if we don't develop a relationship with every student, which we just can't do, it is our job to try to understand every student to educate that person the best that we can.
That's great. Anything else you want to show me about the Media Center?
Yeah, so before we go, I'll just show you the space. It's a big, messy room right now. So I mentioned
it's huge. What are the dimensions?
Well, so of our library, oh man, I've never even I guess it's about, looks like 40 feet by 120 feet. Yeah. It's a very long space too. So
you serve, how many kids are at the school?
So we have about 2,400 students at our school. So it's getting bigger. We keep getting, I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have a 9th grade academy soon or what. No one's talking about that. Marietta City, that was just me. That has nothing to do with anything. Mm-hmm. I do not have the authority to say that, but I will. So what's next for the library? So this space right here, it's a storage room right now. Is where we kept our video collection. Yeah, we do. Teachers do still check out DVDs and even some of our old videotapes to show. So this is a storage room and a video collection. But what I'm doing with this space right now is I'm clearing this all out, and this is going to become our audiovisual makerspace. This will be a space for media production, for podcasts, for music, for video. We're going to have a green screen backdrop in here with video cameras. We're going to have an electronic drum kit in here and guitars and basses and microphones. There's going to be 5 different workstations, 1 for live video production, 2 for video editing, 2 for music production. There is a big demand for this, and this is something that I want to see more of in school libraries. And we've always offered these opportunities for media production, but it's never been a dedicated space. It's just been like a computer and, here's a microphone you can check out, here's some headphones. So you can still do those things, but there were never any musical instruments. Cameras were kind of dedicated to a box that you would check out instead of a space. So I wanted to make a space dedicated to video production. And again, this is a space that I'm able to justify because we're seeing more and more of this in public libraries. My friend James Mitchell over at the new Sewell Mill.
Oh, I know him very well.
Yeah, he's a great dude. And what he has done with that space has been amazing. And he has a video studio. He has a music studio.
I know. I recorded some stuff in his little podcast thing.
Yeah, and I love it. And I'm so grateful that he's over there. And we want to do more of that here. And again, this is something that I've envisioned as a library. As long as I've been a librarian, but could never really justify it. But now that we're seeing some other libraries do it, here's my opportunity.
Great. All right, let's keep going. What else you got?
So as we go through the rest of the library, there's the electrical closet. Here is this was our Mac lab, but that's going to be the storage room when I take those Macs and repurpose them for the video studio. Audio video studio. So there's kind of shifting around right there. This room here is our historical room, and this is where we keep the 100-year-old yearbooks.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that
Here in our
existed.
historical room, and it smells like history.
It does.
It smells like old books. And we do, I think our earliest yearbook is 1915, our earliest Olympian. Yeah. So it's, we got one copy of every yearbook. There's so much in here. We should probably be wearing gloves just to walk in the door here. Mm-hmm. But, old newspapers, all the old school newspapers, the old pitchforks. So, yeah.
That is cool. I didn't know this existed. Yeah, so.
There's an old Letterman's jacket. We have the old plaques from the old buildings when they did renovations. So I don't even, and we're working with the foundation. That's my next project, is to work with the Marietta Schools Foundation to digitize all our yearbooks. I wanted to get them all digitized, available online. I want them searchable, so you can type in a name and boom, you can find it in that yearbook. So
I know Beverly McAfee.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And so I've worked with her. She brought me over to the governor's mansion one time to plug in a microphone for her. It was great. Had a great time. Thank you so much, Ms. McAfee. And so yeah, we are working with the foundation to try to get all these digitized. And one of the greatest moments in here, I have this great photograph, and I need to put it up online. It was Mr. Northcutt standing with Mr. Northcutt going through the old Olympian to try to find great-great-grandma Northcutt, or Grandma Northcutt. So, yeah, it was like Mr. Northcutt Sr. with his son, and, these guys are, yeah.
I had him on the show.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Guy Northcutt.
Ask him about the library, yeah. I'm not sure, which Northcutt was it?
Guy.
Okay.
Well, I guess his dad was called, yeah, he's 80.
Okay, I suppose that's who, I'm not sure who was here. But, anyway.
Yeah.
One of them works here at the high school, and so anyway, it was just a great moment, like in the archives, in the history room here, to see two generations looking for that, even further back generation.
Right, and you have some prints, very famous paintings around the library.
Yeah, we do. It was, so I haven't even mentioned my co-librarian, Laura Gary Mitchell. She's a beautiful person. I'm so grateful to work with her. She's one of the reasons I decided to be here instead of that other opportunity I had in another school that summer. Yeah, and Laura's been very, very supportive. When it came to her with the idea of the makerspace, after I explained to her what it was and what we're doing, she was like, yeah, let's go for it.
Isn't that great to have somebody you can bounce ideas off of?
It really is. And Laura, what she's done most for me is she's offered that motivation. Like, I've had the idea to do Cafe Libre for years, and I just haven't really been able to make it happen. But, she does drive me to do these things. Come on, let's see it. Make it happen, Tim.
What's this room?
The Olympian and Pitchfork, the school newspaper and yearbook, their classroom is in here. Ms. Lyons does a great job with the Pitchfork, and my friend Mr. Sonny Harding does a great job with the Olympian.
I love the pictures on the door. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and so here, same as it ever was.
And how many students do you have come through your library every day, would you guess?
It's a good question. We have a very popular library. In the mornings, we'll have 75 to 100 people, and that's just in that first 25 minutes before the first class begins. Throughout the day, we'll have at least a couple dozen students just sent down by their teachers. There are some very, very quiet moments throughout the day in the library, but during lunchtime, there are 4 lunches throughout the day. We'll easily have 100 students in here. We do allow students to eat lunch in the library, and they've been pretty responsible with it. We do find chip bags in the shelves sometimes, but for the most part they are very responsible about it, because they do recognize that typically you don't eat in a library, but we want to offer an alternative to the cafeteria, where the cafeteria is a loud place, and you just go and
respite.
Yeah, exactly. We want it to be like a little bit of a sanctuary almost. And no, it should be a dynamic learning space. There should be collaboration. People should be talking. People should be chatting. Like, yeah, but they don't need to do it loudly. And so it's not, when you walk in the library during lunchtime, it's not dead quiet, but it's not as loud as the cafeteria. And at times students do forget that they're in the library, and maybe they should be in the cafeteria. So yeah, regrettably we do. I tell you what, here's a pass, go on down to the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. And we don't like sending students out of here, but if they just don't get it, we'll do what we need to do.
Yeah, you don't have many filters. You'll tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So it's again,
that's great.
Well, it's if they just come down here and treat it like another cafeteria, it's not fair to the students who need a quiet place. And so suddenly we just have 2 cafeterias. Yeah, and then it's if you want to be loud, go to the cafe. You have that space. And if you do that down here, then our students who need a quieter space don't have that space. So
what do you got here?
So this is a room. This room's in transition as well. So you can see all our equipment here that's going to go into our audiovisual makerspace. Our technology guys, we've kind of offered some of the space for storage for them. But this space was a classroom. We were kind of running out of spaces in the building, and so this was a classroom for a year or two. It was just too small for classroom, and our administration agreed, so they gave the space back to us. And we're working on assembling a new modular technology enhanced classroom so that teachers can come down and check it out. There will be a cart full of tablets and then all rolling furniture, so it can be all assembled. It'll be condensed furniture, so you can fit a lot of students in this small space, but everyone has plenty of room. So we're going to try to do some new things in this space.
All right. Now, so if I'm an administrator and I see you coming, I'd get nervous because it's always like, I got about 10 ideas. And how receptive are they to somebody like you?
They're super receptive. And I think that it's a matter of trust. And I think we've built that trust with our administrators, because when they do come to us and they say, hey, we're doing this event out on the soccer field, we need amplification and we need a projection and they throw this idea, you say, yes, sir. And they trust that we will make it happen. And that's what we've done over the years, is they've thrown this stuff at us and we say, yes. Hey, Tim, we're giving the AP test. We got to record 60 students at once. I need you to make this happen. Yes, sir. So we do our best to accommodate them, and so that when
you need something,
it's just back scratching.
Gotcha. All right. So what is this? Who does the art? Like this thing?
What's that? So there is some student art throughout the building, and I got distracted. I was talking about my co-librarian Laura when you asked about the paintings on the wall. Right. So, there is some student art hanging throughout the space. But one year, Laura and I agreed that our walls were kind of bare, and so we needed some artwork on the walls. You can go to the school library vendors, and they have like these goofy pictures of books, and they say read, and I mean, I guess they're good for wall covering, and I guess they kind of promote reading, but they're still kind of invisible, just kind of like you walk. It's like the artwork on the wall at Panera, So I said, we have this opportunity. This is another educational opportunity. Let's do this. Let's pick a handful of classics from art history and let's post those. So Edvard Munch, Warhol, Da Vinci,
Van Gogh,
Banksy, So, and Laura actually has a degree in art history, so it was easy to make that list. So we took a look at our budget. We made that list. Picasso, I see too. Anyway, the nude descending a staircase, but it's abstract, so it's not really. It's appropriate for schools. Okay.
All right. So is this pretty much the end of the tour, would you say, or have we got any more you want to show?
I think so. Well, this is a fun one. This is something I'd really like to. I kind of mentioned, libraries being modular. I think in the next handful of years, Mr. Hofstetter at the district is going to help us make some big changes. He's going to spend a lot of money for us and really re-envision the library. And this is one model that I did. I took one of our bookshelves, I flipped it over, and I put wheels on it. So I had this in my last school library. And
you pretty much just do it and then show people afterwards?
Some things, yeah. Like you got to kind of gauge, like, will they be upset if you do this? But this worked out great. And so we have, because this is on wheels, we have had to move it around a couple times, and it's kind of like pushing a Mazda Miata around.
There's a glue stick under it.
Yeah, and a piece of cereal under this bookshelf too. But it has been helpful to have this on wheels because we do move it around the library, or kind of open this space up if we need to. I want to open up this space so we can accommodate the whole staff in here if we want to. If this is a table that I put together. You can buy these kind of collaboration tables for about $3,000, where it's just a big table with a TV on it. But I decided, I think let's just buy a table for $250 and a TV stand for $50 and put them together, and so
cool,
a tenth of the cost. But yeah, and we'll have teachers sit here. They'll plug in their computer. We have a little keyboard that they can have external to it, and they're all looking at the same screen. We'll do students work here together as well, and as students see other students working on it, students come in and they ask, can they work on it here too?
To wrap things up, what do you think's going to happen in the next 5 years here at Marietta High School?
At Marietta High
for you, at least.
For me personally, like I said, I think that they're building the new College and Career Center just outside the library here. And so that's,
Didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's going to be a whole new batch of classrooms. A lot of those classrooms will be dedicated to the career and technical education program. The video video classroom is going upstairs. I think the culinary program, same where it is. The engineering and technology classes will have more dedicated spaces there in that new building. So that's going to affect us. I think I'll lose my parking space. Again, in the library, I think that a whole giant batch of money is going to come in because the school is hitting 20 years. It's my understanding when a school hits 20 years, there's a new chunk of funding that comes in for major renovations. So I think we will probably get new furniture, and we may get an entirely new layout. I hope we'll at least get new carpet. So.
Every time I talk to somebody about the school system here, it's pretty amazing of all the things you guys have going on, and it meets the needs of the society and the kids that are coming to the school. Because vocational education was kind of thrown aside for many, many years. Now it's being brought back because we need welders and those kind of folks. They're great jobs and everything else.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Oh, that's another thing. We'll just write these down and come back to them. I'll come back in a few months. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, get Dr. Brown on here. He's our director of CTAE for Marietta City Schools. Dr. Brown, he's a great guy.
Anything you wanted to say as we close this? How do folks get a hold of you in this library's media center?
Yeah, we're super easy to get a hold of. You go to the school's website, and the media center tab is right there on top. My name's Tim Nielson. Just ask for the only librarian in the district. That's me.
And you're also active on social media.
Yeah, so me personally, I do. I mentioned I'm a musician. I do have a band, and we do play shows locally. Funny enough, our last performance was at a public library. So,
really? What's the name of your band?
So the name of the band is The Private Pageant, and you can go to theprivatepageant.com. You can go to, Timothy Exit is my Instagram username. So I post a lot of fun stuff on there. It's very different. Of course, there's, Mr. Nielson, the school librarian, and then Timothy Exit, the singer-guitarist of the New Wave band. And they are two very different characters. It's like, in as much as Johnny Depp is not a pirate, it's a matter of playing a part, and it's a fun part to play, and it's fun to have that connection to music.
Yeah. Well, I was super excited to meet you, and Jennifer Marletta from the Marietta Community School hooked me up with you, but yeah, she was great, and I love what you're doing here, and it's been exciting, and I'm energized. I want to make something.
Okay, come hang out, Bill. Definitely come make something with us, man. Whatever you envision, I want to see you make it.
All right, take care, buddy.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks once again for listening to Marietta Stories Podcast. We'll have a new episode out next week. Until then, if you go to the podcast app, you can subscribe. And if you wouldn't mind, tell a couple friends about the show so we can spread the word. Thanks.